Hey guys, that's me. It's Dave, the Alabama Sasquatch. So I got a little treat for you today, a little taste test. Well, it's a treat for me. It's not for you because you can't taste it. But Daniel Spencer over at Salus Health sent me a sample of their algae product. So what they do is they harvest algae that grows out on Klamath Lake up in Oregon. I believe my geography is right there. And they process it, dry it out, package it up, and send it out into the world as a superfood, healthy greens powder, make you feel good juju stuff, right? I normally do. I normally make my post workout smoothie with our Bonds greens powder. They're superfood greens and protein. And so basically, I'm going to follow the same recipe that I normally do, except I'm going to include this greens powder that I'm about to open real quick. I'm going to have to squat down a little bit and work with my camera a little bit at opening up the package and see what we got here. Right, what do we got? Salus. It's called AFA. AFA. Afanazeminon floss aquae. There you go. That's fancy. I'm going to stick with AFA because I'm from Alabama. Alpha is the world's most potent green food, Earth's first protein, and the key to unlocking healthy cellular regeneration so you can heal and thrive. Alpha contains over 100 micronutrients, perfectly balanced and 97% bioavailable. Alpha raises your micronutrient levels and supports healthier cellular regeneration. I'm all about that. I'm all about some healthier cellular regeneration. All right, so their recommendation is half a gram to a gram a day to start off with. And let's pull it out here. Got this nice little box. Cool stickers. Thanks, Daniel. Share health. I like that. That's what we do. We share health. What do we got here? It's got its own little wooden spoon. How cool is that? That's actually really cool. So, little glass jar. I'm digging the glass. What we got? There we go. Oh man. It is literally, I don't know if you can see this. You can't until I adjust the camera, but look at that. Filled to the absolute brim, right? Oops. Filled to the brim, y'all. That's pretty cool. That's you know, like that says a lot about, I'm not trying to blow you away with the size of the jar. This is the size of the jar for the amount of product that you get. It's perfect. I'm digging it. It smells green. It smells like chlorophyll. That's what it smells like. Well, I'm curious, so I want to see what it tastes like naked. So we're going to mix it with just a little bit of water, and we're going to try that. So I'm just going to take just a little bit. See? Just a little bit. Drop it into my glass just for a little taste test. Dissolves very quickly. super quickly. And I mean, benign taste. I, it really. It tastes, doesn't taste like much of anything. All right, so I'm going to pause this real quick, and I'm going to go to the blender over there and make my smoothie. But you guys don't want to listen to that, do you? Do you? Do you? Well, no, you don't. All right, I'll come back. See you in a minute. All right, and I'm back. Made my smoothie. That's my smoothie. It's got a slight green tint to it. Actually, Arbonne's green powder definitely makes it a lot more green, but I don't have that in here. I have Salud's Health AFA. AFA? 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 AFA. I'm going to go with AFA until Daniel tells me otherwise. Like I said, the by itself, just with a little bit of water, very mild taste. Um, Not even grassy, really. Just slightly chlorophyll, maybe. If that's a flavor profile we can go off of. It tastes green. It tastes green. So my smoothie, by the way, and yes, I am drinking it out of the pitcher because I am an efficient human being, right? Why am I gonna make a dirty glass? You gotta do dishes, right? We gotta change that stuff. So like that's my serving. I'm gonna drink it. I'm gonna drink it out of the thing. Um, 2 cups homemade yogurt, a banana, um, Arbonne vegan protein powder. Today it's the vanilla, about 30 grams worth of protein, um, peanut butter, tablespoon of peanut butter, and the greens powder, and that's it. And so this is my go-to, my first meal of the day. Gets me refueled after a workout and ready to face the rest of the day. So let's taste it. It's the same. It's the same good shake that I have every morning. Um, you know, primary flavor coming off of this is the wang of the yogurt. It's got a wang to it, which is good. I like that. And then I taste the banana and the peanut butter and the vanilla. And I really don't taste the algae powder at all. I did that little wooden spoon. I did one little scoop of that. Of course, I have no idea exactly how much that is, but I imagine that it's somewhere between half a gram and a gram. That seems reasonable to me. So there you have it. Salud's Health. Um, I'm going to, since I have this and I've been gifted with it, I'm going to use it in the place of my greens powder until I run through all of it and see if I can tell a difference. See if it makes me feel absolutely amazing or not. So I'll keep you posted. But thank you to Daniel. Thank you to Salud's Health. I appreciate you guys sending me this to try, and I'll keep y'all posted. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Hey, everybody. It's Dave Hall, the Alabama Sasquatch, and I'm coming back at you with another one of my deep talks with the Alabama Sasquatch. I've not been doing a lot of these, and I'm hoping that I can get back into them and make them more of a routine. Today, I have on the phone Daniel Spencer, who has a very interesting gig running. I'm not even going to try to explain what it is that he does. I'm going to let him do that. But he's a relatively new addition, I think, into the health and wellness sphere, and has just a fascinating product. So, Daniel, go ahead and say hey.
Right on, Dave. Well, thanks for having me, and hello to everybody, the Alabama Sasquatch. I'm actually talking to you from Texas, where I'm on the road promoting my product, and yeah. So as far as being new to this health and wellness sphere, it's actually incorrect. I've actually been a part of it for like the last 20 years, but I just can kind of laying low as I've been focusing on my company, Saluz, which is a natural medicine company, and so. My original journey, took me from California, and that's where I got my passion for health, wellness, movements, exercise, and I took that passion and brought it down to Mexico, where I lived there for 6 years, and I did retreats, and just really wanted to connect deeper with the culture of Mexico, and then I wanted to share that with people. So that's where I created the whole new retreat brand called Travel and Train. Did retreats and workshops, and just trying to help people reconnect to their bodies. And I've known Chip Conrad, who's also a big member of the community,
Woo woo.
for like 15 years. Yeah, Chip. So Chip is actually from Sacramento, and that's where I have family there. And I was able to fortunately meet up with him through the connection of fitness and movement, and we became really good friends. And yeah, and then 2 years ago, I started this natural medicine company, and it's all about just helping people realize their potential. A lot of times this whole wellness movement, nutrition space can be so complicated and confusing, and like, where do you even start? It's kind of like a supplement aisle walking down. It's like, well, I know I should take something here, but I don't even know what to take. And then, learning more about it is, if you take it, is it even going to work? So yeah, that's where I came in, and I was like, okay, we need to have a better solution to this for people. And it also goes back to nature, like nature is the best chemist. It's been doing it for billions of years, and let's just focus on what nature's provided for us, and bring that to the market.
That is awesome. That's super cool. And just right there, there are so many things that I want to get into. The first of which is actually Mexico. Um, Tell me about where were you in Mexico?
So the place is called Sayulita, and it's north of Puerto Vallarta, and it was originally a fishing village in the 80s, and some people found out about it and then became a surfing location. And then now it's a huge expat population, and literally they're building as fast as they can mix concrete, they're putting it up. So there's a huge expat tourism community there. But there's some amazing, beautiful nature that is just incredible. And there's a really good, strong culture down there of the indigenous culture, which is the Mexica or the Huichol. And so I was fortunate enough to learn about the culture. And also, one of my really close friends is a cultural photographer. And so I was able to travel around Mexico and learn from these cultures. And then, you know, create photography workshops down there in different parts of Mexico. So it's a pretty amazing place. And again, it's all about the nature is what's down there. I do these retreats, and like, the training, they come there for the training, but it's the nature that really grabs them, and that's what they learn the most from, is that area is about the nature. Like, for instance, this one location that I take people to, it's like a mile walk through the jungle, but at the end of it you get to a pristine beach, and the sand is covered in magnetite. So from a grounding, like, feeling of perspective, it's amazing. And it's just surreal, and you're like, this place looks prehistoric. But yeah, that was my home turf for 6 years, and that's what kept the inspiration and fueled the passion for what I'm doing now today.
That is solid. So back in 2019, um, for an anniversary trip, my wife took me down to Merida, and
Mm-hmm. Marita,
so
yeah.
we spent about a week down in Merida, and that is northern tip of the Yucatan. It's sort of like Mayan Central. There's a lot of ruins centered around there.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much. It also has this pretty strong expat community. It's it's the hub for all the Mayan tourism. Um, and I friggin' loved it down there. It was
Hmm.
so like everything from, we did a cenote tour. Um, but the thing that struck me well, there were a couple of things that struck me. The presence of the indigenous culture inside of uh, um, larger Mexican culture was super cool to witness. There's a plant that sort of is again, it's sort of been commoditized, and it's part of the touristy thing down there, but everything centers around chaya. And
Yeah.
yeah, you
Yes.
familiar with chaya?
Oh,
So
totally. Yeah. It's the Spanish spinach.
yeah, yeah, exactly. They call it the spinach tree, and literally, I mean, it's there's a drink. It shows up in all types of food, um, and that was sort of this like standout of this theme for the week for me as I was spending time down there, was recognizing how this culture managed to fit itself so harmoniously with its environment in terms of like the Spanish influence of the architecture. The Airbnb that we stayed in had these, 14-foot ceilings with transoms, and the the building itself was built around a courtyard, and so the living quarters basically surrounded this central open area that had a small swimming pool in it. So there was this water feature. Um, that's tropical region, so the average temperature is 93 degrees year round. And
Hmm.
so like having, being able to go from it being, 95 degrees, because we were there in June.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Yep.
so
Hurricane season, right?
yeah, so super hot, super humid, and then
Hmm.
walking, right off the street into this enclosure, and the temperature drops 10, 15 degrees, um, all without air conditioning, right? And just
Hmm.
like really, it was so cool spend time in an area where people like they didn't even have hot water heaters because they didn't need them. You just put a tank on the roof, right? Leave it
Hmm.
up there for an hour, it's going to get hot, right? Like that's awesome. And I live here. I live here in Alabama. I live here in the South. We have um, an environment that, at least in the summertime, is very similar to there. So those temperatures, the locals were like, "How are you taking the heat?" I'm like, "I'm from Alabama. It's like this at home right now. That's not that big a deal."
Hmm.
But what we don't do here is try to fit into that, right?
Yeah.
Everybody down here has an air conditioner, right? You don't live in the South without air conditioning. As Americans, we bend our environment to meet our needs, as opposed to how do you fit yourself into the place that you're at.
Hmm.
And so I really, really loved that. I loved the open air markets, how fresh the food was. I cook, so when I came home, I was really interested in doubling down at my local Latin grocery so that I could, recreate some of these things that I discovered down there. And it was
Hmm.
such a bummer because, like, we have like really big markets here, and we have like you can still get much of the same stuff. So I could kind of sort of recreate what I'd experienced down there, but like the quality is so different because literally, you're buying mangoes that were, picked off the tree, half a block down the road from the market, right? I mean, it's
Hmm.
just food everywhere. And here it's like, yeah, this mango might be good
Well,
yesterday.
it comes from the same place. It comes from the same place. Like,
Exactly, right?
just
And it's been
has to
on a
travel
truck for 2 weeks
1,000 miles.
making its way up here. So
Hmm.
it's yeah. Um
Exactly. I'm really glad you touched on that. Like you said, that place kind of changed you and inspired you to want to come back and have an experience similar to that where you live.
yep.
And I think that's what's important. It's important to have that experience and then that connection to the food and the environments, because I think that's one of the things that's holding a lot of people back these days is connection and
Absolutely. Yeah. I
connection
mean,
more to ourselves, but then our environment, like you said. In Mexico, they have palapa house roofs. And so it's just they're using the natural environments, they're using the palm leaves, they're making the structure, it protects it from the rain, but they leave it open so the air flows.
Right.
And like I didn't have air conditioning. I didn't need air conditioning because I had a palapa roof and I had a fan. Ceilings are high enough, the air is moving through there, and I'm one with the environment.
Yep.
So summertime was hot, but I knew how to stay cold. My house was built like that. But nowadays we're so comfortable being comfortable. We don't like being uncomfortable. So yeah, that's I think that's a big thing too, is just the disconnection from our environments, and then also just trying to be comfortable in every moment.
It was super cool to see how they could integrate that even into urban environments like in Merida. Like one of the things that I picked up on was that there were these small parks all over the city, right? So
Mm,
you couldn't go 5 blocks without running into a park, right? And so, um, you know, everybody worked their day. People, like, there was one moment where Samantha and I showed up at a silver shop as your absolute typical bumbling Americans. We've been walking around at, like, it was like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And we've been walking around through the heat, like, here, we're doing our thing. We walk into
yep.
the store. The store's open, but it takes a minute from the guy, and he sort of comes out of the back. And as soon as he comes out, I was like, fuck, he was taking a nap, right? Like, that's where we should have been. We should have been gone back to the room, taken a nap, and then waited for the afternoon when it was cooler to come out. At the end of the day, everybody goes to the parks. They eat outside. There's all these
Yeah.
food carts all over the place. So people stop to get supper outside, because why in the hell would you heat up the kitchen in your
Yeah.
own house and make your house hotter than it already is? And they hang out in the parks until 9 or 10 o'clock, and then everybody wanders off and goes home and goes to bed. It's just a
Yep.
beautiful way to live that fits inside of your environment. Particularly being from Alabama, like we part of the reason that we don't have that is that we got rid of our indigenous population,
Yeah.
right? The Mayans have been living there in that environment, God knows how long, right? You think that, culturally they've figured out, like, how to make it here in this space. So if you come in as another people into this space, maybe you should talk to them and be like, okay, it's fucking hot here. How do you manage
Mm-hmm.
this, right? And I am sure that the local indigenous people here, the Cherokee, the Creek, the different Indian tribes, they managed to figure it out. And we sent them all to Oklahoma, so there's nobody to even ask and go, hey, dude, how did you manage this? What is the Alabama equivalent of chaya, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what were the indigenous things that are already here that people you know took advantage of, or understood would work with them.
That's exactly what's been inspiring me to really like ask myself, how did our ancestors live before us, before we had all this technology, this food, like how did they do it? I'm so glad you brought that up, because to me that I think that's the answer. That's the answer to a lot of our problems, is going back and that looking at our environment. What was local? What is the local chaya? What is the local herbs? And talking to those people that have the wisdom and being like, yeah, how did you do this? And I think that's what more and more people need to understand and think about, is how can we reconnect back? How can we reconnect back? How can we disconnect from the future and the technology and reconnect back to the land, so that we
Yeah,
can spend more time outside, we can spend more time away from screens, more time with the people that we want to spend time with, and have those lasting experiences. And I think that's what's missing, is people don't have enough experiences. We don't treat our life as like ceremonial enough. Like most people, they think about rushing through a meal, and in Merida, you don't rush through a meal. You spend like an hour eating.
right.
Like
Yeah,
you're eating, you're just hanging out. The waiter's not going to come by and say, okay, I need to flip this table over. It's like, you can stay there as long as you want to.
right. Yeah,
And that's what it's all about, is that community. And so our fast-paced life is really, it's not a natural environment for us, and it's affecting us a lot.
truth. Yeah,
Yeah, but the chaya thing is amazing. I actually had a chaya tree at my house, and they're so amazing and abundant. You could just cut the trimming off and give it to your friend and say, here you go, grow some chaya. And
Yeah.
then it's just amazing. The drink is really nice. I mean, you could all you have to do is boil the leaves, and you can add it to anything. I actually used the chai leaves instead of grape leaves a couple times. So
Oh,
I was,
nice. Yeah,
yeah.
I
So
can
I was just
totally see
fortunate
that.
enough
Yeah.
to meet people that have, been able to share some of the stuff that they have. Like for instance, if you get stung by a jellyfish, well, there's a vine, and that actually is something you put on that jellyfish sting, and then it'll actually pull the toxins out of it. It heats it up, pull the toxins out, and it decreases the effects of that burn of that jellyfish. But if you remove it from the environment because you're trying to build big houses on the beach, then you're going to lose that
Yeah,
that
there is
medicine.
there is a I don't know exactly what to call it, an aphorism, a truism, whatever they call it, but there's this idea inside uh, of herbal medicine where wherever there is wherever there is the disease, nature also provides the cure,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so I've been like, again, here living in Alabama, land is comparatively cheaper, and so like I live on my house sits on about a 3/4 acre lot. So
Mm.
and I'm on the edge of town, so it's kind of semi-rural. I get to keep goats, and stuff like
Yeah.
that because nobody tells me that I can't.
Yeah. You
And
drinking
this
goat milk? You get the goat. You drink goat milk?
no,
Yeah. They're just
no.
they're just your yard. They're your weed eaters, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So, long story short on that one. So, when we bought this house 14 years ago, um, there was about a half an acre of the property, maybe a third of the entire
Hmm.
property that was completely covered up with privet and wisteria, and um, it bugged me that I had just bought this piece of land and like a whole third of it was covered up with stuff that made it completely inaccessible. I was like, by
Hmm.
God, I'm going to use that. I want
Yeah. Yeah.
fruit trees and whatnot. And so um, my grandfather has basically ran a farm since he got back from World War II, and he raised goats. So I was very familiar with goats, and so when I went up to him and I was like, "Hey, Grandpa, I want buy a couple goats off of you and take them back home." And I got them home and put them to work and let them help clear the area. Now, also being at least familiar with farm stock, my grandfather raised goats for meat, so I
Mm.
know goats are also delicious.
Hmm.
So the plan was to let the goats help me clear the lot, and then we were going to have a barbecue.
Okay.
What I did not take into account was that I also have daughters. And so, those goats turned into pets. And one of them died last year. The other one is still alive. And so that goat is 15 plus years old.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So, as far as goats are concerned, that goat is an immortal. And certainly as far as my grandfather's farm was concerned, because nothing lived on that farm longer than a year or two. So,
Mm.
like, they're mythologized within the herd uh, back at their home. But what I've been playing with over the last year or so is this property was also part of a coal mining operation from
Hmm.
the early teens and 20s up through the 50s. And so um, land management during that time period in particular was not very enlightened. It was just scrape it clear, get all the vegetation and everything out of the way. So the quality of the soil here is not all that great.
Mm.
And so it's been a passion of mine to take this little parcel of land that I have and restore its health as much as I possibly can to be a good steward of what I have.
Hmm.
And so that has largely involved, um, like last year, um, I quit mowing certain parts of my yard. Like I just quit entirely. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens.
Hmm.
Um, what was crazy is that for the early part of the spring, the entire backyard um, and the side yard where my dogs spend most of their time suddenly was just covered in this daisy variant called fleabane.
Mm.
Call it daisy fleabane, and it literally is a herbal flea retardant. Fleas don't like it, and so I was just struck by the beauty of that. I was like, that's exactly what I need, right?
Hmm.
And if I
Hmm.
just by leaving it alone and not doing anything and not mucking around with it, it's right there.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful concept. That's it's
Well, that's the harmony, and everybody says, like going back to nature or nature, like the nature lives in harmony. Like you said, it has the anti-flea stuff, but then it has stuff that's nasty and whatever as well, right? It's the harmony, it's the balance. And that's what we are all striving for. That's what it's innate within us to find the balance and the homeostasis. And that's why I got so excited about natural medicine because that's what it's doing. It's working with the pituitary gland of our bodies, which is the master hormone regulator of our bodies. So if you can switch and play around with that and get that functioning where that's in balance, everything else is not that important. Your carbs, your proteins, your macros, this is and that's, but not as important as long as your hormones are balanced and they're increasing your ability to handle stress. And that's exactly what it is the pituitary gland works with the adrenals. So that way our body's ability to handle stress. So if we get fired up because we're late for an appointment and then our bodies don't know the difference between that and a tiger chasing us, there's some problem there. But if we can be like, okay, I'm late for an appointment, but I know how to down regulate my nervous system, lower the cortisol level, now I'm okay, and now I can go about my day, then your body is going to be much better off, and you're going to be able to maintain homeostasis a lot longer. And so that's what these natural medicines can do for us is, like you said, is create that harmony on the planet, but inside of our internal environment as well.
that super cool. Um,
And
tell
so
me,
that's what I'm trying to think about too, is like this is everybody's so focused. It can be health can be so like complicated, but at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be. If you think about the nervous system, like what is our nervous system doing? It's either it's going to be sympathetic or parasympathetic state. The longer we're in that rest and digest and calm state, the better off we're going to be. But when we're like anxious, you talk to people like one in five people are going to say, "Oh yeah, I have anxiety. Do you have anything for anxiety? I can't sleep." It's like what has happened in our society where we have such an anxiety problem of focusing on future threats, you know,
at a
like
point in our lives where our lives are more comfortable than they have ever
ever been.
been in
Yes.
human history. It's
Yes.
insane, right?
Yep. And we're not wired like physiologically and psychologically, we're not wired for future threats. We're wired for what's immediate at the moment. So somehow we're like focusing on this future that we can't control when we're not focusing on what's we can control, which is the present.
Do you think that's because we've so thoroughly eliminated immediate threats that we have to sort of spiral our minds into manufacturing what could happen since there's not really anything happening right now?
Yes, and also the fact is our bodies are in a survival state. So we're constantly looking for those things, like you said. We're just looking for danger. We're looking for danger, and we're always on red alert. And like you talk to somebody about, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And then they'll almost attack you. So it's just the imbalance. It goes back to the imbalance. And so when you can get the body out of a survival state and into a more restorative state, then that's where you can have the harmony. And that's where like your experience going back to Merida is those people they don't have these big threats. They're not focusing on making as much money as they can in a short amount of time period as possible and stepping over people to do it. They're all about community,
Right.
so they're all about the longer term picture rather than just the day-to-day grind. They don't have a day-to-day grind. Every day is a new day and it's an opportunity to, be with their family and the people that are important to them.
Yeah, yeah. There was several things that I noticed while I was there. On I think it was Thursday night, Parque de Santiago, they would have a big band come out and play,
Mm-hmm.
and the old people would come out and dance, and it was just this super chill, friendly, family type atmosphere. You'd be walking around the park at night, and maybe some teenagers were making out on a bench over there, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
another group of old friends were sitting there talking, and yeah, it was just like community
Me-
in a
yeah.
sense that does not exist. It certainly doesn't exist here. And like
No.
I said,
Yeah.
Alabama has an environment that is equally as conducive to outdoor community, right? But people don't interact in the same way,
Mm-mm.
here, right? Everybody's on their own little knit groups, and if you go out with friends and you take that group with you, and you guys experience stuff out the world together. But there's no, you know, you're a weirdo if you talk to strangers.
Yes. Yes. Totally.
Yeah. My
That's
wife
what,
and I
after
are
living in
weirdos.
Mexico for so long, you're so used to talking to people down the street and just having conversations, and everybody looking at you, they're all weird. They're on their phones and they're just like, "Huh? You talking to me? No, what?" Yeah. But that's what's great too. And there's something about it, David, you said, like walking around and seeing somebody and having that conversation is like, oh, hey, how's it going? So and so. Like that just does something to our body that releases dopamine for our bodies. It just feels better rather than literally just walking around like you're a zombie or like you
Yeah.
just don't have a connection to the next person. Um, but yeah, and Mexico just loves to celebrate. There's so many celebrations, so many holidays. There's usually that community space where people all get together, and doesn't matter what day it is, and they'll have everybody just comes together. And like you said, they if you look at them from the outside, sure, they're sitting around plastic chairs and plastic tables, and but they're the happiest people. They don't have the big screen TVs, they don't have the fancy cars, they don't have the bad. They buy knockoff stuff, but they get by, and they are happy people, very happy people. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I,
they're so friendly too. Like if you were like you go down there, like I'm sure you just like you ask for a favor, and people are they want to help you so much. Like they're literally, hey, do you know how to get to here? They'll tell you how to get there, even if they don't know how to get
yeah, there were.
there.
So
Right?
Samantha and I had, through our Airbnb, had connected up for a mezcal tasting,
Mm-hmm.
and so um, we looked at the map. We're like, oh, it's less than a mile from where we're at. Let's just walk. We'll just walk. And so we head off, and we're following Google Maps, and we're making our way. And I made a wrong turn and had us going in the opposite direction, and went from sort of the towny, touristy side of town. Everything went from Spanish architecture to single level cinder block type buildings, and clearly we were moving into a more working class residential type neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, honestly, here in the states, started to look like maybe we were moving into like sketchy town, right? Like maybe especially as a couple of big white middle class tourists bumbling
Mm-hmm.
around. And uh, we walked up on a couple of guys on the corner, and they were like, "Hey, are you lost?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I am." Right? He's like, "Where are you trying to go?" And I'm like, "I'm trying to get here." It's super helpful, like just
Yeah.
100%. We
Mm-hmm.
I hooked up with a jujitsu school while I was down there, and I took a number of classes while I was there. And like, they were like, "Oh, you're gonna Uber?" No, man, I'll drive you back. Like
Mm-hmm.
just super, super friendly and helpful. And yeah, in fact, the next to the last day we were there, we're out just walking around the street, and somebody yells my name. And Samantha
Yeah.
looked at me, and she's like, "Are you serious?" And one of the guys, from the jujitsu class comes running up, gives me this big old hug, man. He's like, "Hey, dude, how you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was. I get really enthusiastic about places like that, and I won't lie to you, man. I came home and I was looking at real estate in and around Merida because I was like, dude, I could retire here. This would be,
Yeah.
a super cool place, and for all of those things that we talked about. So that's a really beautiful thing.
So you didn't pull the trigger? Did you get some real estate down there?
No, I didn't pull the trigger. I would basically, I would like I could do well, in terms of if I sold my house right now and just flipped it into a house down there.
Hmm.
I mean, I could get me a nice little. That's the other thing about it is that your dollar goes far down there.
Yeah, it does.
Um, and I'm not used to feeling like a wealthy man, but down there I was like, hell yeah,
Yeah.
peso, and you get a peso, and I was,
Yeah.
I
It's
was,
only 20. It's like Monopoly money, huh?
oh, dude, and it well that and just like I believe in tipping, right? I
Hmm.
believe in showing your gratitude, and and in a situation like that where I can afford to show my gratitude, like I'm over the top, I'm like,
Nice.
yeah, so
Good. Yeah, Mexico's she's it's an amazing place, you know, and it makes sense. Like after spending so much time there, and then coming back to the United States, and just like that doesn't make sense. Like, why do we have these big strip malls, and why do we have like these big billboards and stuff? It's like that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, you know, like Mexico kind of shows you what you really need, which is not much, but it goes down to the things that we can't buy, which is community, you know, and just that that welcoming environment and that connection. Literally, you know, it's the things that we can't buy that Mexico has to offer for us.
yeah, and unfortunately, I'm afraid that at least in the case of Merida, the our influence is trickling down.
Yeah,
There's a Sam's Club. Sears is doing quite well in Mexico, as far as I could tell. So that there's definitely a trend towards um, our big businesses trying to exploit those markets and trying to um, shape attitudes. Really, you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Well,
people.
it's 3 years behind. So when I was down there, like CrossFit was just getting popular, and I was,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just like CrossFit, and I was doing a lot of the body weight strength stuff and calisthenics, and that hadn't caught on yet. So, you know, it was just like it's just Mexico's about 3 years behind in a lot of areas. But now it's catching up, and there's plenty. You can get anything you want down there, basically. When I was down there, like I had to order stuff on Amazon just to get like almond butter and all
right.
sorts of things, or get like Thai noodles or something, or you know. So now it's all available. And then the store, when I was first moved there, I didn't have a car, so I literally had to jump on a bus with my backpack on and go take a ride through the jungle and go to this big store called the Mega. I probably have the Mega down there, and fill up my cart full of stuff and put it in my backpack, and then go home, you know,
Yeah,
and then walk another mile to get to the house. But that's how you got the food, you know, because in the little village I had, they didn't have as many options as I was looking for. So it's changed a lot now, but yeah, that's what it was like down there. And now everything's available. You know, you can get anything you possibly get here down there now. But yeah, it's there's a that's the influence. It's good and bad. You know, it's convenient, but then again, it's like you said, you're instead of buying natural things, you're just buying or local things. You're buying, you know, things from out of the country again.
yeah,
And Amazon didn't really exist. Like literally, Amazon did not exist when I was down there, and now it's Amazon Mexico.
yeah.
Or my parents sent me a Christmas card, and I didn't get it till February. You know, it's kind of funny. So, but it's a lot better now, which is it's good because everybody wants to. They're trying to. They're seeing the value of being in a location like that, and they want it to make it work for their lifestyle. So it's good and bad, just like most things.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what it comes down to is that it intelligently mitigating like that balance.
Hmm.
That it's very easy to for us to go way so hard in the direction of convenience. Um, I mentioned my grandfather's farm. So my grandfather, when I compare my life to my grandfather's life, um, it's insane. It's just
Mm.
they're not even comparable. My grandfather grew up in what used to be rural Tennessee. Um, he was born in 1919. Um, so as a kid, he talked about, as an 8-year old, uh, my great grandfather owned a Texaco station somewhere in the county. So
Mm.
he was always gone running the store, running the gas station. So farm chores basically came down to my grandfather. So at 8 years old, he's hooking up a plow to a mule and plowing fields by himself
Wow.
as an 8-year old. Like I
Wow.
can't even fathom that, right? Like
Mhm.
honestly, I would be intimidated trying to do that now at 50, let alone, being asked to do that at 8. That's insane.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
during during the Depression, he would and he started. He was a goat man all the way back then. So during the Depression, he would. Well, my great grandfather actually lost the Texaco during the Depression.
Hmm.
It went under. And Grandpa made money by buying and selling goats. He'd buy a goat for $1, he'd kill it and quarter it, and sell the quarters for 50 cents a piece. So
Yeah.
the man, in the middle of a depression, managed to turn a 50% profit or 100% profit. Uh, then went to World War II, fought the Pacific, came back, bought a grocery store, ran a grocery store in town, and ran the farm on the weekends. Um, and so, like, the vast majority of his diet was locally produced goods. And, this is also a man who came back from World War II with malaria. Yet,
Mm.
within, there's a story of him 5 years. So he came back in, what, 48? No, 45. He came back in 45. Uh, my uncle was born in 47 and my dad was born in 48. So in like 52, um, my grandfather had to run a fence line on the farm. And so he decided that it was too much trouble to dig post holes for the fence posts. So what he did was he loaded all the fence posts onto a wagon and drug the wagon along the fence line and had my dad and my uncle underneath the wagon. And they would hold the posts upright, and my grandfather would drive them into the ground with a sledgehammer.
Hmm.
So, like, that's the physicality that this man brought to the table, right?
Hmm.
Living off of a diet of completely locally produced foods, right?
Yeah.
Um, Fat back, vegetables from the garden, they made sausage, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Fast
it goes. Yeah. But
I was just going to say, fast forward to the 70s and 80s, and convenience food starts coming into play. So really, about mid 80s up through the 90s, I watched as their diet changed. As it became more convenience foods. It became more, um, just stuff that was easy to make. Because one of the things that I figured out about farm life is that there's so much work to be done. Efficiency is key. Make
mm,
it, try to make whatever you do as efficient as possible so that you're not wasting energy. And so TV dinners are efficient, right?
hmm.
Frozen food, like prepackaged processed food is a lot more efficient than the entire process of, shelling a bushel of beans or whatever, right? Watch then the difference between his health. Uh, he lived to be 99, almost made it to his 100th birthday.
Oh man.
My dad died at 63. Right.
Wow.
My aunt and my uncle and my cousins, who all still live up there, their general health is not good. right? It's not good. And they're living in the exact same environment that my grandfather came through, right? Malaria, 2 heart attacks, all of that still had a foundation of health that, you know, lasted until he was 99. It's
Yeah.
really amazing, right?
Yep.
And then to compare that to where we are now, and it's sad and it's scary, and when I look hard at it, I'm like, this is just stupid. Why do we do this to ourselves?
Yep.
Um, it's
Yeah, when you meet somebody that literally has all the lights turned on and they're in their 70s and 80s, like I'm always like, how did you do it? What was your I'm always curious, like how did they grow up? And they're like, oh, we had a family farm and we had a garden and we had this. And it's like, there's your answer. I mean, my great grandmother lived to be 104.
Wow,
She
that's
was
awesome.
104 out of she grew up on a farm in Illinois.
Yeah,
And but my grandma, she grew up on the same farm. She was a nurse, very healthy. But then when she was getting older, my grandpa was taking care of her. They started doing lots and lots of processed food. So, they're very big in the church, so they go to church, but then after the church, they'd always go to like Denny's or Caro's, which
right.
is fine every once in a while, but if you're doing that week after week after week, and then on top of it, and my grandpa didn't have time to make the meals, or he was getting older too, so then he started giving her Marie calendars, microwave meals, again, I saw the decline, and at that time I wish I had what I had now to be able to give my grandma, like, take this, take this, take this. And so we had to watch my grandma's health go like this and down, and then dementia kicked in and Alzheimer's, and before you know it, that's not the grandma you remember, when you're a kid or anything. It's like it's so hard to watch, and that's been a big inspiration for starting this company, is to give people hope. Because like you said, they're doing things out of convenience, they're doing things because they think they're doing the best they can, but they're actually doing so much more damage and harm than they really know, and it's because, again, it's a future threat. It's undetectable. It's a chronic. It's not an acute stress where it's like, oh my gosh, I broke my arm, I need to actually do something about this. It's like, oh, it's just a TV dinner. It's just a TV dinner. And meanwhile, like, they didn't know the difference. High sodium, what's high sodium going to matter? Okay, as long as it's eating my protein, as long as it has protein in it, right? And yeah, so it was really hard to watch that for my grandma, and that's always been in the back of my mind as we're doing what we're doing, is, we're giving ingredients to help support that process, that aging process, now that detoxification process from these heavy metals, which so many people are exposed to, and they have no idea. And it's the hidden disease that people are not talking about. And now they're going to these doctors and saying, "Oh, why am I feeling this, or why am I doing this?" It's like, well, your body's been exposed to these heavy metals, and literally, what happens when you get a heavy metal? It's literally telling the enzymes to stop functioning, so that way your body's literally it's functioning, but it's like running a car with flat tires. Sure, you
Yeah.
can get to where you need to go, but you're on flat tires now, and it's not very efficient. So yeah, so now the body's not being efficient, right? So now it's about, let's get that, clean up that sludge, and let's get the body back to, let's literally just get out the way. Give the body what it needs and get out the way. That's kind of literally my approach to it. And what's great about our product and the product that you've been, enjoying, is it has micronutrients, and that's the thing that most people aren't talking about. And like you talk about your grandfather, he was eating stuff from the soil, and it had the micronutrients, it had the minerals. Well, our food doesn't have it anymore. So our product, because of where it grows in Oregon, and the fact that it's so connected to the minerals from a volcano, means that you're getting these deep earth minerals into the product, which is an algae, and that way it can nourish the body and cover the basis foundationally and nutritionally what our bodies are designed for, and we all have receptors for. And I don't know if you knew this, but 92% of people are and micronutrient deficiency leads to chronic diseases, and 60% of people have one chronic disease, and 40% have two or more. So it's pretty bad, and I think literally that's our foundation of health that most people aren't talking about. They're still talking about focusing on, oh, but I need this magical powder from this store, and this, I need to have this. I'm missing my protein. It's like, well, no, what protein is amino acids. If you're going to eat that steak, but if you can't actually digest it in it, digestible amino acids, and your body doesn't know what to do with it.
Right.
So you are getting your macros, but you're not actually getting your micros. And I think that's the conversation I want to have, is changing the idea from the macro idea to the micro idea, and let's focus on our foundational food and nutrients and lifestyle, and then let's get out the way and have some fun.
Tell me, well, first off, let's take a minute and tell everybody about the product that I've been trying.
Mm-hmm.
I know, always being from Alabama, I always fuck up pronunciations. So is it AFA, AFA,
So yeah, so it's
AFA?
AFA, AFA. AFA is what we call it, but the technical term is called Aphanizomenon floss agua. And the translation literally means the invisible flower of the water.
That's awful pretty.
Yeah, isn't that nice? So you can literally imagine what happens is, so it's an algae. So the algae is the first organism on the planet. So what it did is it absorbed the carbon dioxide and created oxygen. And so what happens is when the algae feeds off the minerals, and what makes our product unique is it's 40 miles away from Crater Lake. And so Crater Lake, for those who don't know, was a volcano 8,000 years ago. It was called Mount Mazama. It was 14,000 feet. It was one of the biggest peaks in the United States. And so when it imploded, it literally imploded and dusted all of the upper United States, Canada, and all over to Greenland. It was just a huge eruption. And so it took an existing lake, which was 100 feet deep and 100 miles wide, and turned it into and 10-foot deep lake, and like a 25-mile wide lake. So this algae feeds in the perfect environment because of the fact that it's covered in minerals. And so the algae needs the minerals from the volcano eruption, and it also needs fresh water. And there's 17 springs of water, or streams of water, and then it also needs the right amount of light. And so it's the right altitude as well. So it's 4,000 feet elevation, and so this algae just feeds off the minerals, and also it absorbs the light spectrums from the sun, and that's what creates our original compound, which we're calling Earth's original superfood, which it literally is. It's the first food on the planet.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So how did you make the transition from retreats in the jungles of Mexico to being up in Oregon, right?
Yeah, Oregon is where the algae grows. So it was definitely an evolution. First started out with from the retreats. I realized the hole in the retreat game was the awareness of the retreats. I had a small following from the United States, and I was traveled around teaching exercise, but I didn't have the big opportunity to really tell the story and give people the chance to really see themselves in that experience of what I wanted to create for them, what I created for them down in Mexico. So I was fortunate enough to meet my business partner now. He's a document storyteller, and he taught me a lot about media. And we were going around, actually, before we started the company, we were filming an environmental film in just based around this community in Mexico where these passionate people are just passionate for the environment and passionate about like literally stepping outside and actually doing something and getting a part of a cause that they can stand behind. They found their purpose, and we were just trying to highlight the purpose through our storytelling. And so yeah, that got us super excited about the potential. And we were doing beach cleanups, and what I noticed right away is, like, how is it that people see us doing beach cleanups, and yet people, like local people in Mexico, they would just watch us clean up trash, or they wouldn't even help us. We'd walk around and we'd have their bags, and they would just put their trash in our bags. Or it was just such a weird, surreal, like uh, environment where like you just don't understand how people can be so disregarded for their own environment.
Mm-hmm.
And but what I realized is, people, going back to the conversation about survival state, is they're not happy with their own internal environment. They're not taking care of their own nutrition, their own lifestyle, their own health. So how could they exude energy towards something outside themselves when they're not happy internally? So that's where my studies of natural medicine was like, aha, we have to change the internal environment so that way we can change the external environment. And so when we decided to switch from environmentalism to humanism, I already knew the product which we were going to start with, which is this algae because of its deep nutritional foundation that it provides. And the only place in the world that it grows is Oregon. And we just so happened to show up with our cameras and meet the right people at the right time. And before you know it, I'm living at the guy's house where we harvest the algae, and I live on the lake where the algae grows, and I was a part of it 100% this whole year. And it's actually a year today is when I moved back from Mexico to the United States, and just knew this potential was waiting for me. And for us to really make a big impact, which my business partner and I really want to do, is I had to be here, give up my dream life in Mexico to make this a reality. So that way we could have these conversations and be able to share this product with as many people as possible, so they can feel the potential.
I'm struck by what you said about you can't pay attention to, I'm paraphrasing essentially, but you can't pay attention to your external environment until your internal environment is right. And that is, that's profound, really.
Hmm.
I, you know, I think you're right. I think you're really onto something there. And that, um, as humans, we have managed to, you can make the argument that we've managed to muck up both sides of that very, very well. But certainly, I think, well, I mean, I think the last 2 years have really driven home how thoroughly we've mucked up the internal environment, and
Hmm.
our understanding of what health is, our understanding of how to attain it. And as I get older, I find myself more and more of a heretic. Um, I was having a conversation. I was having a conversation just the other night with a good friend of mine at dinner, um, and he was talking about he had just moved back to Birmingham after living in New York for 20 years or so, and was basically bemoaning trying to navigate the medical system here in Alabama as a gay man, and
Hmm.
how um, just like how much more of a pain in the ass that is. That it's better, and there certainly are avenues that have opened up in the last few years, but still, it's not great, particularly in mainstream. And the whole time, I kept finding myself thinking, "Dude, why are you going to the doctor in the first place?" Like,
Hmm.
I'm like my general approach, and this is me, and I don't expect anybody else to follow what I say by any means. But as far as I'm concerned, like the only time any doctor's ever done me any good is when something was broken.
Yeah.
Like my leg is falling off. You think you can put that back on for me? Yeah, I think we can do that. Okay, great.
Well, that system was created from the military. That's
Yeah,
a military system. It's not a forward health system, like, and that's why I think with the Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic is like they're all about healthcare. They're all about, and helping somebody's, they're all about a health span and not just fix, a pill for an ill. And unfortunately, we're stuck in the military version of a healthcare system, which is a business, and it just doesn't work. And like you said, it's doesn't give people hope, like people, especially not I think in our parents' generation, are they're so focused on giving their health responsibility away to somebody outside of themselves. They're not willing to actually think like, I know best for my body, but I'm going to give it to you. You
yes,
don't know me. I talk to you 15 minutes every 4 times a year, and I'm going to give you all my responsibility for what's best for me.
yeah.
No, no. But we're quick to give it away. We're just quick to say, here, take it. Because people also don't want to take responsibility for their health.
Well, and I think that is exacerbated by a cultural proclivity for specialization.
Mm-hmm.
so that we don't have. There are very few of us that look for the big picture. You're encouraged early on to narrow down and specialize and be the best that you can be at this thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the generalist is sort of poo-pooed as a dabbler, but it's the generalist who's more likely to have the a better eye on the big picture, and
Mm-hmm.
to look at. I just recently listened to this podcast with a regenerative farmer, and and
Who was it?
it was Will Harris.
I don't know him.
So he's a farmer down in Southwest Georgia,
Mm.
and he's fun to listen to because, like, if you're picking up on my accent, his is like down south southern.
Perfect.
He's a slow, meticulous talker as he tells you in great detail all the things that he does on his farm. Uh, but um, the thing that struck me was that he kept talking in terms of systems, right?
Mm.
He keeps thinking, that he's looking at, and he also said, like, you can't, this is the type of knowledge that really comes about experientially, right? That you can't, like, he's like, I can't
You can't buy
tell
it. You
you.
can't buy a farm and expect to have this knowledge and just you be able to run a farm perfectly. If you don't
Yeah,
have the
exactly.
experience
Like
running it.
it's
Yeah.
it's situational, and it depends on your local environment and your local, what you've got going on in this space right here. So it's a lot harder to go to your local ag school and take a course in regenerative agriculture because what works in Southwest Georgia, is not necessarily going to work up
Mm-hmm.
in Eastern Indiana or
Right,
Northern
right.
Montana. So, like, I have a tremendous amount of respect for that because I'm, like, you know, that's my number one go-to whenever anybody asks me a question. Well, it depends, right? there's,
Mm-hmm.
this is not a cut and dried situation that I could, 2 plus 2 does not necessarily in this instance equal 4.
Right.
Um, so,
Yeah,
um,
no, regenerative agriculture is it's a fascinating thing, and it goes back to taking responsibility for your health, right? If you can learn to cultivate your land and cultivate your environment and turn that into your health producing food, then you're winning.
yeah,
And so that's one of the things that we're really passionate about too, is we believe everybody should have access to good health, the best foods available. There shouldn't be such a discrepancy. And from a societal point of view and a cultural point of view, that's something that we really want to do. And so a couple organizations that we want to work with is like literally take our products and take the proceeds. And then we're working with a fertilizer. We're making an algae fertilizer. And then we
really,
want to donate that fertilizer to community gardens, in like inner cities. So that way they'll have access to the best of the best as well. And like you mentioned about your soil too, is look, with our algae fertilizer, you can repopulate your soil with volcanic minerals that will give that nutrition to the soil. So you'll be able to grow just about anything in that soil because of the fact that the algae has the mycorrhizal fungi, which is what the soil needs. And so you're getting the nutrients from the fertilizer and you're getting the nutrients from the soil. And you're literally, that mycorrhizal fungi is like a freeway system. So the nutrients can go in and they can give those plants and the nutrients that it needs to function and survive. And so it's going to increase the nutrition of that plant, and it's also going to take it's going to increase the whole health of the soil. So it's going to turn dirt into soil, which unfortunately our planet's full of a bunch of dirt, and we should be all fertile soil. There's no reason why.
yeah. So, dude, I am so glad that we're having this conversation because this is this. I mean, you're right up my alley. You're right there on the same page. That I don't even know how. I guess I was planning out this year's garden and digging around again. Like I told you, I'm very interested in trying to reclaim and that's what's wrong with my environment is that uh, the microbial life is almost non-existent, especially on the upper half. Um, like the whole reason that that lot was covered up with privet and wisteria and all of these, um, for lack of a better word, junk plants, was
Mhm.
because the environment was trying to increase the amount of organic matter in that soil. It had literally been stripped and scraped clear. There's no topsoil up there. It's
Mhm.
just clay and chert. And so, there's like very little microbial activity going on up there. Like I'm struck and dismayed by how long uh, goat poop just sits on the ground. I mean, those goats have been shitting up there for 14 years. Like you would
Hmm.
think that they
And it
were,
doesn't decay, huh?
yeah, no,
Hmm.
it just kind of hangs around. Um, and it's largely due. Now I had been trying to like I've spent a bunch of money trying to seed cover crops up there. This year, well, the last 2 years, we got overrun with something called yellow crown flower. And it's just completely covered every available uh, inch of ground, and the goats won't eat it. They don't like it at all. So it's untouched by them, and it grows to about 6 feet tall, and then dies back. Um, and so it's providing organic content for the soil, um, but it's also a super slow process. So I've been trying to also seed in cover crop of legumes and brassicas and grasses, and trying to get sort of a variety, but it's not taking very well. Um, and so that caused me to do deeper research, and that's where I got into the whole like, oh shit, the whole microbiome of the soil, um, which again translates to human health as well. So, like, if you start thinking about as a steward of the land, as a gardener, as somebody who is trying to improve or work with their environment, the key to actually doing that is to feed that microbiome of the soil and encourage that microbiome of the soil. You have healthy soil, you'll have healthy plants.
Mhm.
Conversely, um, human
Well,
health.
let's talk about that. If you have healthy cells, if you have healthy cells, trillions of cells, you're gonna have a healthy functioning body.
Yes. Yes.
So it's the
And
same thing.
so, well, so there was an interesting, I heard somebody else talking about that as far as nutrition was concerned, that you should focus on feeding your gut biome,
Mhm.
so that by again, like if you want to have a healthy body, by you know feeding and encouraging the harmonious bacteria that already live within your body, right, or repopulating um, damaged populations, right, that's going to lead itself. And like again, there's that harmony there that like that's enough for me. I'm like, okay, that's cool as shit. Right,
Mhm.
let's run with that. I don't need, you know, I, I'm by no means anti-science, but our cultural proclivity that we're not willing to entertain any idea until it's been vetted by half a dozen peer-reviewed studies. I'm kind of like, I ain't got time for that.
No, and nobody has the
You
money
know?
for that either.
Like, I'm much more willing to, like, that makes sense to me, that resonates with me, I'm going to run with that, I'm going to see what happens. Right.
Yes.
So, like with your product, that seemed very reasonable to me. It made sense to me. So I'm going to use it, right? And I'm going to use it for a month, and I'm going to see how I feel, right? And see what kind of difference happens. Does it make a difference? Right? Am I better? Am I worse? If I'm worse, obviously then this is not the product for me, and maybe I should do something else. Right.
Mhm.
Um, you keep looking, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not comfortable putting my health and well-being in somebody else's hands.
No, not at all. I mean, it's like you like going back to the product is it's a green food. You've been taking green foods for probably like 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
But what makes ours different is it has different nutrients. It has volcanic minerals. It has like gold, silver, palladium. It has these nutrients that our bodies have receptors for that you just haven't been getting from the other greens foods because it doesn't have it. So it's just like literally your body's been kind of functioning off of lack, and once you give it that, like those neurons, the nutrition, their body's like, oh, I've been waiting for that, thank you, and now I can actually take pressure because now I have vanadium. I can take pressure off my pancreas. I don't have to release as much insulin after this meal because vanadium's going to be able to take that pressure off. And so there you go. And then that would something that could, if somebody had diabetes, and now you're giving your body more support to help it could bring it back to homeostasis and balance.
Yeah, we've already touched on that our soils are increasingly depleted, which means that every one of those, other greens products, right, are come from
Mm-hmm.
agricultural products. So either they're grown in depleted soils, which means that they need to be amended one way or another,
Mm-hmm.
or they're grown hydroponically, which again is a unnatural, better living through modern chemistry process that, I don't have enough faith in our ability to keep up with the infinite number of variables that are involved in natural processes to think that we can fully replicate that.
Right. Well, for instance, it's a man-made environment, meaning it's not going to be able to absorb the natural spectrums of the sun. So it's not absorbing. It can absorb tons of blue light, but it's not absorbing the red light spectrums, which our bodies need, which is the IV. But yeah, I mean, it goes exactly. It's one of those things where you really need to focus on the foundation. Everybody's so quick to want to. I really hate the term biohack, but they want to biohack their health when they're not actually supporting their natural health processes. It's like trying to shoot a fish with a gun as opposed to fishing with a pole. You
Yeah.
know.
Well, I think it's so interesting. I'm glad you brought up that term hack because, I guess over the last 10 years, it's increasingly become, popular to use that term and biohacking and hack this, hack that. When I was,
It's
when I
like
was,
optimize. Let's just optimize.
yeah, it's such a better term because when I was
Yeah.
in my early 20s, I worked as a chef in some uh,
Nice.
finer dining restaurants, and for us, a hack that was an insult. If you were a hack, right,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
cut corners. You
Hmm.
were incapable of creating, the type of product that we prided ourselves on being able to do. So yeah, hack has always been like something that I no, thank you. I'm not going to be associated as a hack.
Yeah.
So
I just really despise that term because hack, like you said, is computer. That people are trying to get around something. You're trying to like cut corners when just optimize. It's all about just optimizing, what we already have. We have enough, give it what it needs, and get out the way.
well, and there is so much value in the process itself,
Yeah,
right? The
that's where the experience
destination
lies.
is the
Yeah.
destination is not the only part of it, dude. There is a
Hmm.
journey there, and you skip the journey and you miss, most of the value.
Yeah.
Uh,
No.
well, I've
Well,
kept
there's
you.
another thing I'd like to touch too, because you mentioned about working on the yard and the farm, and in the fitness industry, we're all about getting stronger and bigger and better for the gym. But in the reality is go get a farm and go work in the yard, and You're gonna do plenty of farmers carriage. You're gonna do plenty of. You don't need to buy a new sled push because you have a wheelbarrow. Go push a wheelbarrow. Go move dirt. Go shovel. There's your rotational work. There's like going back to Mexico. Those guys can outwork anybody that goes to the gym that's super fit. Go shovel cement for 8 hours and tell me how you're gonna feel.
That is the total irony of
Yeah,
of
the
my
fitness world.
industry is
Hmm.
that
And
we spend.
we pay people so that way they teach us how to do those things when all we have to do is go outside and work in our own yard.
to do utterly non-productive work. I mean, you were
Hmm.
working, but you're picking up something heavy for the sole purpose of being able to put it back down again.
Yeah.
I used to joke about when I worked in a more traditional type gym that we, at the very least, should hook up all of our cardio equipment to dynamos, so at least they could be generating a little bit of electricity while they're, you know,
Hmm.
running on their treadmills going nowhere. Um,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, it's this irony that we worked ourselves to this place, and there was this cultural disdain for labor, right? It was, labor is, it's lower class. It's what
Mm.
people who can't do anything else do. And so, if you're not smart enough to figure out how to not work with your hands, um, and then those of us who were smart enough to figure out how to not work with their hands, then go pay part of the proceeds from their work to get somebody to teach them how to work with their hands but not actually do anything.
Hmm.
It's the most bizarre thing ever. You're 100% right. Like I love the work that I do. I love the people that I work with, and I love what I am able to help them figure out and do for themselves. But I hate this industry. I
Yeah.
totally despise this industry. The latest statistics from our own government is that 23% of the population meets the minimum requirement for physical activity. Right?
Hmm.
That minimum requirement is 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week. So if you go for a 30-minute walk 5 days a week, you've hit your minimum requirement. You're
Hmm.
good, according to the federal government. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, 23% of the total population meets that. Of that 23%, what percent of those are laborers? What percent of those are
Mm.
people who, just by the very nature of their jobs, meet that requirement? You get where I'm going? So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
actual number of the population served by the fitness industry, right, is even less than 23%.
Yeah.
Yet everybody knows that physical activity is a requirement for good health, right?
Hmm.
You find anybody on the street and you're like, hey, do you think you should exercise more? Oh, yeah, I should totally exercise more. Well, why don't you? Right? Well, I'll tell
I
you
don't
what.
know. I hate to then they say they hate to exercise. So it's like,
Yes,
then you need
because
to explain to them what that is.
because
Yeah.
collectively we suck at what we do.
Yeah.
We have so narrowed down on the small percentage of people who enjoy fitness the way that we sell fitness, right? And we ignore over 70% of the population, right?
Hmm.
And nobody's out there trying to figure out, obviously this is gross to them. How do we fix that?
Hmm.
Obviously there's something that we're doing as an industry that is not serving uh, our population. But what do? We double down. We double down, and it's all about, six pack abs and looking sexy and exercising till you puke and just, harder, faster, stronger. And
And modern gyms that just don't translate to anything, like I used to work out in the gym and I was strong in the gym, and then I went to go try to do something outside and help somebody move a couch, and I couldn't move a couch, but I could pick something up. I could pick a barbell up off the ground, but picking up and moving a couch and going up and down stairs, no, I needed help.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
so I think it's about changing the conversation. Again, it goes back to what Chip talks about in his books: be strong to be useful, and George A. Baer talking about be strong to be useful. And now then going back to again, Chip is what's your purpose? Like spinning on that treadmill is and calling that exercise and calling that working out. There's no purpose there. You're just checking a box, and again, it goes down to people are always in this day and age is so fascinating after being disconnected from this environment coming back is tracking and data and tracking my sleep and Fitbit watches and this is and that's and not even reconnecting with the internal Fitbits that we have inside of our bodies, telling us when it's time to go to sleep, telling us how well we're doing, helping us, like when we're anxious, telling us to breathe, like we've quote unquote biohacked that out of our lifestyles. And now we've given that responsibility away to a Fitbit watch, telling us how many calories we're walking and telling us how well we're asleep rather than asking ourselves, did I sleep well last night? Am I well rested? Am I reaching for that cup of coffee first thing in the morning? If I am, then something's not right, something's out of whack. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that gets into, I think, a larger conversation of how we don't trust ourselves.
Yes.
Like
We don't trust
again,
ourselves and we don't know ourselves.
exactly, and
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why we seek external advice when something's not right. Is like, okay, doc, something's wrong with me. Fix it. And
Hmm.
to
Meanwhile, the red light's been going on for a while.
oh, of
Like
course,
check engine's been going on for a while. Check
oh,
engine, check
yeah,
engine.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Your body has been telling you all along,
Yeah.
right? Um, that is, I'm in kind of a unique position in terms of my jujitsu practice because I'm one of the oldest guys in my school. So most of the guys that I train with are definitely under 40. The vast majority of them are in their late 20s, early 30s. And so, I was having a conversation the other day with a guy about the gift of injury. Like
Hmm.
every injury is a gift because
Hmm.
what it's telling you is what you've been doing up to this point is not working,
Yeah.
right? You missed the warning signs, okay, and now this thing is without doubt saying you got to change something,
Hmm.
and that's a wonderful thing. So pay attention to that, sit with it, figure it out, and then move forward in a much
Yeah.
more intelligent fashion than you were up till now. Um, yeah.
That's amazing. Jiu-jitsu is a beautiful sport. Yeah, I never really got into it. Just never felt like the right thing, and I always felt like I was gonna get injured, and then I couldn't do the things I love to do, which is surfing and teaching at the time. So it's just like it was always in the back of my mind. I enjoyed it, but it was just like I just can't risk that at this time, at this moment.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think it's entirely dependent upon um, the culture of your school and how you approach it.
Hmm.
Um, I will say I both attend. I'm a purple belt, and so I attend and train at a school, and then under my professor's blessing, I have some classes here at my own gym. So I have
Yeah.
I have a few students underneath me, um, and I will tell you in all honesty, and I would tell them, like, I don't know that you want to come with me to my class because the environment is very different. Um, like So, my class is 6 a.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the guys who show up for that class are the snake eaters. They're we roll not unintelligently by any means, but certainly much more aggressively, and certainly you got to mind your p's and q's while you're there. The guys who come to me are just not in that space, right? And
Hmm.
so you're welcome. You'll be taken care of. Nobody's going to actively hurt you, but you're going to be overwhelmed because like that's that's not exactly what I'm not trying to create fighters. I'm not trying to create competitive champions. That's not my goal. My goal is to use jujitsu as a vehicle for self-development.
Hmm.
Really, what it comes down to. Putting
Yeah.
yourself in uncomfortable situations, learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Um, we started off talking about stress and fight or flight and being in and out of that sympathetic and parasympathetic state. Like, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to dance with the tiger, right?
Hmm.
Knowing full well that you go into this, you're going to be taken care of because this is a dojo. This is an artificial environment. You're not going to die here, but we're going to introduce physical stress into your life in such a way that you can homeopathically respond to that, right? You're gonna be able to, and what the result of that is that then all the other stressors in your life sort of drop down a notch,
Hmm.
right? They're not nearly as intense as they used to be. I'm more resilient in how I approach that. And I think that jujitsu is a wonderful vehicle for doing that. And so, like, I want to try to make that as available to as many people as possible. So I take a much more gradual approach with my students because I want them to stay in it longer, right? I don't want them to run up against that, you know, injury early on because they weren't prepared for the work, or I don't want them freaked out because they got completely mauled, uh, in class. Um, I want them to, eventually I would love to get them to a place of resilience where they are more competitive, but I'm not going to throw them into the deep end first. I'm
Yeah.
going to bring them along much more gradually.
Yeah, that's why I love surfing. It's the same way, like you get out there and the ocean will is no mercy on you. She's
Yeah.
gonna show you exactly what you're made of and see if you keep coming back for more and you're gonna get bashed and held under. It's all about continuing and maintaining calm in that situation. And then when you get that one, when everything aligns and you calm the body down, you calm the brain down, and you're able to focus on all of that energy into catching the wave and riding that amazing force of nature at one moment. There's nothing sweeter than that. It's that ultimate flow state, and then you take that out of the ocean, but you bring it into your life, and it's like you said, the stressor level is just a little bit decreased, and you're like, okay, I can handle this because I've been out there. I've handled worse in my life.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I love about breath work too, is I got really into breath work, especially apnea work, just really challenging the body and getting out of the way mentally and letting the body just take over its natural ability to maintain homeostasis in that most stressful environment. I feel like breath holding is one of the most stressful environments you can put yourself into. And it's
Oh
it's a way
yeah.
that we can control. It's something that we all have access to, but we're scared to tap into that power. And it's right there for us. And again, you can take that level of stress, and it's going to build up, and you think you're going to suffocate, and you go, and then as soon as you calm down and relax and get your breath back, your nervous system goes, and that's yours anytime you want to. It's a tool. It's just all there for you. So, but again, it's just going to help you in jujitsu. It's going to help you in all these situations that you may face in life. But yeah, I think the power of the breath and maintaining and being aware of your breath, but being able to manipulate your nervous system through breath is another key that many people are not tapping into and can benefit greatly from.
Nice. Nice. Well, Daniel, I have kept you on the line for over an hour and a half now.
Nice. Well, it seems like it's been like 5 minutes. So
I have really enjoyed this conversation. I look forward to future ones as well. Tell everybody how they can find out more about your product and can get in touch with you.
sure. So the company's name is Saluz, Saluz. And in Spanish, salud means health and luz means light. So when it's translated, it's the light of health. And you can find us at saluz.io. Same thing on Facebook, saluz.io, Instagram, saluz.io. And yeah, my business partner and I are really big about educating people about the product and educating how it's going to help you. because it's a complex product. It's not just a green food. It's a complex green food, and it literally has the nutrients that our bodies need to help you with, maybe it's your diabetes or brain focus. It's really good with mood support too. We didn't talk about this, but it actually has the precursors of the neurotransmitter dopamine and serotonin. So every time you take it, I don't know if you noticed, but maybe your mood improved, or you just felt a little bit better, happier. Things have started to feel a little bit more magical, a little more flowy in your life. So that's another really good benefit from the product. And so yeah, so lose.io. We also have medicinal mushrooms as well, which we didn't talk about, but mushrooms have an amazing power. And so I'll just share briefly our philosophy is raise the micronutrient levels with our products. Give your body all the nutrients it needs. AFA is your food source. It's not just a supplement of food that you take daily. And then whatever your response is looking for. So if you're still like just a very anxious person, you just can't, you have a stressful life, then we have mushrooms like reishi mushroom, which can help kind of balance that out and bring you down and ground you. Or if you're an athlete, you need a little bit more energy. There's a mushroom called cordyceps sinensis, which increases the ATP storage of your lungs. Or you mentioned gut microbiome. Turkey tail is really good for prebiotics. It's the highest amount of polysaccharides, which is really good for your immune system. So we have more than just the algae. We have a kind of collection of products. We're calling them nature's gifts that we've collected. And so, yeah. And you can find me on Instagram, Daniel_Spencer11. I'm currently traveling right now, and just trying to share the product to as many people as possible and get people to really feel what we're calling the spark of life. So yeah, Dave, thanks again for the opportunity. Look forward to having future conversations and visiting you out in Alabama sometime.
Yeah,
Chip and I are gonna come out there for sure. We've been talking.
that would be awesome. Well, then
Yeah.
Chip has already clued you in. I got plenty of space, and would love to have you guys come. That would be fantastic.
We can do some goat yoga, right?
There you go. Yeah, as long as you don't mind getting pooped on, you're good to go.
We'll put it on the plants. I don't know if you of your listeners have watched the movie Kiss the Ground.
No.
No, Kiss the Ground. It's on Netflix. It should be on Netflix. Woody Harrelson is the narrator, and they talk a lot about the conversation we had about regenerative agriculture. So check it out, Kiss the Ground. It's a really good film, just kind of bringing awareness of the current state of our soil and the importance of these nutrients and these minerals that we talk about. And in the future, we're going to have a fertilizer, like I said, which is amazing. I can't wait to. We've been testing it, and everybody we give it to is increasing the yield by 30%.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
That is. I'm very excited to hear about that. I want to know more about that.
Yeah, especially for your soil, you talked about. Like, yeah, we can really, and that's our plan. Is like basically the earth is kind of full of dirt, and we want to turn it back into soil. So that's what we want to use as fertilizer for, is to just repopulate it. And it's so concentrated, you only need 1 ounce for 1 gallon of water for this fertilizer.
Wow.
Yeah. So super nutrient dense, and yeah. So thanks again for the opportunity. Check us out, and feel free to reach out to anybody if you have any questions.
Fantastic. Well, all right, everybody. I appreciate you spending the time with us. This is Alabama Sasquatch Deep Talks with the Alabama Sasquatch. And we've been talking with Daniel Spencer. Check out his website, check out his products, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks, guys.